The courtroom was already thick with tension. Cameras were banned, but the silence spoke louder than any lens could capture, the kind of silence that only falls when history is about to be made. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Ben Affleck took the witness stand. Calm, composed, clearly prepped, but beneath the surface, there was gravity. Not just from who he was, but what he was about to say. Affleck's name had never been publicly connected to the Diddy trial, so when news broke of his subpoena, most assumed it was tabloid noise. But when he entered the courtroom and raised his hand to take the oath, even the judge leaned forward. This wasn't a celebrity cameo. This was serious. He began carefully, recalling a private event from years ago, music, chatter, wine, and a moment that never left him. He had stepped out for air and overheard a hushed conversation between Diddy and Jennifer Lopez. What he heard, he said, was enough to stay with him ever since. Diddy referenced the files, something Lopez allegedly acknowledged, even asked about. "Are they gone for good?" she asked. Diddy replied, "Only if nobody talks." The words dropped like a bomb in the courtroom. Affleck's voice didn't shake, but it dimmed with tension. He wasn't there by choice, you could tell. Guilt? Pressure? Fear? Whatever brought him there, his testimony stunned everyone into silence. Then came the inevitable question, "Mr. Affleck, do you believe Jennifer Lopez was aware of criminal actions connected to Mr. Combs?" Affleck paused, shut his eyes, then answered, "I don't know what she knew. I just know what I heard." And that was enough. Within the hour, the judge reviewed the transcript, conferred with the prosecution, and issued a shocking order. Jennifer Lopez was now under immediate federal investigation and could face arrest pending further inquiry. Gasps erupted. Reporters sprinted from the room. Phones lit up like wildfire in the hallways. In that instant, the Diddy trial stopped being just another celebrity scandal. It transformed into something much darker, deeper, because when a global icon like Jennifer Lopez is pulled from the world of red carpets into the cold light of a courtroom, it's no longer just gossip. It's history being written in real time. The reckoning had begun. And for the first time, the public wasn't asking if Diddy would fall, they were wondering how many others would go down with him. Outside the courtroom, chaos reigned. News vans doubled in number, helicopters circled above, and reporters scrambled to confirm the words now echoing across social media like a warning shot, "Jennifer Lopez linked to Diddy investigation." Possible arrest? Fans were stunned, some in disbelief, others in panic. Could it be true? Did Ben Affleck really say that? But inside the courtroom, things felt even stranger, surreal, like watching a dream collapse in slow motion. The judge hadn't issued a full arrest warrant for Jennifer Lopez, not yet. What he had authorized was something almost as seismic, an emergency motion for federal inquiry. Investigators were now legally empowered to examine Lopez's communications, track her movements, and seek any ties to potential evidence tampering. And according to insiders, if key files or recordings surfaced, the inquiry would escalate immediately. As prosecutors laid out the directive, the room froze. Diddy, seated quietly behind his lawyers, showed no emotion. No smirk. No panic. Just eerie stillness, like he'd seen this moment coming. Affleck's testimony had shifted the entire narrative. This wasn't just about what happened at Diddy's parties. This was about who might have helped him cover it up. Prosecutors were careful not to accuse Lopez of guilt, not yet, but they were clear. Her name had come up too often, too close to the evidence, to be ignored any longer. Then came a moment that changed the energy in the room. A decrypted message from a former employee's device was read aloud. Dated 3 years ago, it said, "Jay doesn't want it on her. D says it's handled." No full names. Just initials. But in light of Affleck's account, his recollection of J-Lo and Diddy discussing hidden files, the message landed like a thunderclap. What was handled? And how? Lopez's legal team issued a denial within the hour, calling the reports defamatory and absurd. But inside court, that statement was meaningless. The prosecution wasn't trying to convict her. They were building a frame, one that showed circles of power didn't just operate on silence. They functioned on protection. Photos of J-Lo and Diddy together at galas, private parties, and high-level meetings were presented. Testimony from former insiders hinted at her involvement in adjusting plans. It was no longer about a long-lost hip-hop romance. Prosecutors now suggested Lopez had access, influence, and perhaps responsibility. And in the back corner of the courtroom, a young journalist whispered into her phone, "This is bigger than Diddy. It's the whole tower coming down." Because when someone like Jennifer Lopez is pulled into a federal investigation, it's no longer just scandal. It's the unraveling of an entire system. This was no longer about one man's downfall. It had become the collapse of an entire system, one where fame had long served as camouflage for silence, power, and dangerous truths. And somewhere, perhaps in a legal office, perhaps alone at home, Jennifer Lopez was watching it unfold. For over 2 decades, she had been untouchable, admired, adored, bulletproof to scandal. The tabloids tried, the critics poked, but nothing ever stuck. She was too polished, too careful. Until now. Now, J.Lo wasn't stepping onto a red carpet. She was being pulled into the center of a federal investigation. And this time, fame offered no protection. The prosecution had introduced a new thread, digital traces. There were no videos, cameras were always banned from Diddy's most guarded events, but geolocation data told its own story. Her phone had pinged at Diddy's private properties multiple times over the past 5 years, long after their public breakup. The timestamps were brief, surgical, and eerily aligned with moments when encrypted drives were allegedly moved to undisclosed locations. Coincidence? Possibly. But the courtroom wasn't treating it that way. Then came more. A former logistics driver, speaking under anonymity, described a late-night pickup at a gated LA home. 2 black cases. No labels. He was told not to speak. The woman who handed them over wore sunglasses indoors. When shown a photo of Lopez from that same week, he paused. "I'm not saying it was her," he said, "but it looks a lot like her." It might not have been definitive, but it was enough to deepen the shadow. And then came the voicemail. Recovered from a former Diddy employee's phone, handed over for immunity. The audio was distorted but clear enough. "Tell Jay it's done. She won't be connected. No last names. No context." But in this courtroom, Jay didn't need a surname. The defense objected, but the implication had already landed. Jennifer Lopez was no longer just adjacent to the story, she was becoming part of it. The gallery buzzed with tension. Every breath, every exchanged glance, carried weight. No smoking gun, no direct charge, but the pieces were adding up. Diddy sat motionless. Ben Affleck, the one whose testimony cracked the door open, wasn't in the room, but his presence lingered in every word. And as court adjourned, the judge's closing statement echoed like a warning, "We are not here to judge fame. We are here to uncover truth. No one is immune." Outside, the streets looked like a movie premiere, flashing lights, cameras, a buzzing crowd. But this time, there was no red carpet. Just the slow, relentless walk of truth. And Jennifer Lopez, once untouchable, was now under a spotlight no amount of PR could dim. Because in a world where silence is currency, the most dangerous role isn't being guilty, it's being part of the secret. The velvet rope was gone, replaced by yellow tape. The flashing lights weren't for fashion, they were for evidence. Jennifer Lopez hadn't been charged, not yet, but even the possibility had sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution had stopped holding back. With call logs, anonymous voicemails, witness statements, and flight records, they weren't just hinting, they were building a pattern. And then came the most chilling moment yet. A protected witness from deep inside the industry, voice distorted, identity sealed, took the stand. "I worked with both of them, Diddy and J. Lo," the witness said. She wasn't loud. She was precise. She knew what mattered, especially when it came to image, silence, and control. The courtroom sat frozen as the witness described a machinery of reputation management, NDAs like party favors, cleanup crews, digital specialists, and secret conversations. And at the center of many of those whispers, they claimed, were Jennifer's initials. One term came up repeatedly, the echo list, a shadow roster tracking who knew what and who needed to be silenced. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was passed in hushed tones, veiled references, encrypted emails. Then, the footage. A grainy security clip from the underground garage of a luxury high-rise in Miami. A black SUV. A hooded woman in sunglasses steps out. No audio. No visitor log. But her walk, her outfit, her presence, cross-referenced with a red carpet photo taken hours later, painted a compelling picture. The location? A known Diddy property. The timing? 2 days before encrypted drives went missing. Coincidence? The defense said yes. The jury wasn't so sure. And then came the flight logs. Jennifer Lopez's private jet departed Miami that very night. Destination, a secluded island linked to shell companies tied to Diddy's business empire. No passenger list. No mobile devices. Just movement and silence. Prosecutors never claimed she masterminded anything. What they implied was more dangerous, she knew. She was present where secrets vanished, where records stopped, and names were never written down. The question in everyone's mind grew louder. Why? Why would a woman with global power, money, and adoration put herself near such darkness? Was it love? Leverage? Fear? Or had she simply been too close for too long to walk away untouched? Suddenly, this wasn't about Diddy anymore. It was about the ones who stood beside him when the lights were off. The ones who didn't pull the trigger, but may have known where the gun was kept. Jennifer Lopez's name had shifted from red carpets and headlines to court transcripts and case files. Her silence was cracking. Her legal team had gone quiet, canceling appearances, sealing documents, and scrambling behind closed doors. And then the prosecution unveiled a cultural map, a visual network of Diddy's empire. At its heart, names spun out in all directions: associates, handlers, operations. Diddy's name was bold. But just beside it, nearly parallel, one name stood out: Jennifer Lopez. Circled. Highlighted. This wasn't the end. It wasn't even the climax. But one thing was clear: she was no longer a bystander. She was now part of the narrative. And the truth was still unfolding. The spotlight no longer lit up a stage, it now exposed cold, harsh truth inside the courtroom. There was no music, only testimonies and secrets clawing their way out from beneath the glittering surface. Jennifer Lopez, once untouchable, was no longer a star orbiting a scandal. She was now seated squarely at the center of a carefully mapped web of power and silence, unveiled one thread at a time by the prosecution. On screen, prosecutors walked the jury through the connections. No one was claiming Lopez had committed a crime, but the evidence spoke in whispers that grew louder with every document. Internal emails from her team of publicists, lawyers, and consultants carried lines that froze the room. One read, "If this goes south, keep Jay completely insulated, no statements, no photos, control the narrative." Another, far more chilling, "Under no circumstance should she be linked to the vault night." Until now, Vault Night had only existed in rumor, a code name for the night Jamie Foxx's recordings were allegedly backed up and multiple encrypted devices vanished from Diddy's estate. Now, it was confirmed. Not only did Lopez's team know about that night, they were actively crafting a strategy around it. But the most damning moment didn't come from an email or an anonymous witness, it came from Ben Affleck. In a recorded deposition played in court, Affleck sat alone, tense, hands clasped. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't acting. He was confessing. He recalled a Miami trip 2 years ago where Jennifer seemed distant, anxious. She took a call in private, then returned and asked him quietly, "If I knew something bad, would you still protect me?" At the time, Affleck thought she was just emotional. Now, he said, staring into the camera, "I'm not so sure." The courtroom stopped breathing. A journalist dropped his pen. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Because if Jennifer knew, and chose to stay silent, it wasn't just about being near danger. It was about walking toward it and never backing away. The prosecution ended the day not with fireworks, but with a single, devastating line: "We are not alleging Jennifer Lopez committed a crime. We are showing you that when powerful people share dangerous spaces, silence is a decision." Outside the courthouse, the crowd had already split. Protesters held signs, some defending J.Lo, others demanding accountability. Justice has no A-list. Jennifer Lopez, once the queen of red carpets and love ballads, now stood on the edge of something she couldn't dance her way out of. Because secrets don't care about stardom. And in the end, silence always speaks. By the time court resumed, something in the room had changed. This was no longer just about tension. It was about inevitability. What began as whispers had become records, recordings, maps, and emotion, the kind no legal team could redact. And as prosecutors returned with even more, another witness, a handwritten journal, a cultural map with her name circled near Diddy's, the jury wasn't just listening. They were starting to believe. For decades, Jennifer Lopez stood untouchable, an icon of perfection, fame, and calculated distance from controversy. But now, that carefully crafted image is unraveling inside a courtroom where silence itself is being put on trial. As the Diddy investigation deepens, Lopez's name has moved from the sidelines to the center of a complex web of encrypted files, anonymous testimonies, and private conversations, some of which strongly imply she wasn't just near the chaos, but possibly complicit in protecting it. From internal emails by her team urging to keep Jay insulated, to a grainy security video placing her at a key Diddy property, to Ben Affleck's haunting testimony of a moment that now feels like a warning, every detail is stacking into a case no one saw coming. A former digital consultant testified she was told to make sure not a shadow linked back to Jennifer. A whistleblower journaled her visit on the night key drives vanished. And a quiet former staff member recalled Lopez saying the chilling line, "If anything ever comes out, make sure I don't burn with you." Lopez has not been officially charged. But her proximity, her power, and her silence are now under the harshest spotlight of her career. The prosecution isn't claiming she pulled the strings, they're showing she knew the room, understood the rules, and chose not to speak. One thing is clear, the story is no longer just about Diddy. It's about the system of protection built around him, and how silence became the currency of power. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel to continue watching the next videos. Thank you. See you again.